a little bit about OCR. I think, Matt, we could do that now whilst people are joining. So we've been celebrating World Oceans Day for some time now, and we like to do it by bringing people together, sharing some of the stories that our crucial guardians are doing, and our community, what they're up to around the world. It's something that we look forward to every year, and often find many of the conversations are then turned into nice actionable steps. People connect, which is great. And obviously, whilst our physical celebrations were kind of grinded to a halt this year because of the big COVID, we were completely overwhelmed and blown away when we kind of reached out to a few of our guardians and storytellers, kind of say, hey guys, do you want to jump on a Zoom and have a chat about this and that? And everyone was so great. Everyone came back straight away. So we've got a range of talks today. Obviously, during this webinar, we're going to talk a little bit about how we can turn the tide on plastics. We'll discuss a little bit about why it's important to work collectively and how often it is quite a misunderstood subject. And we've got some great experts today, so I think we're going to have a lot of questions. And so, yeah, to help this, we've got an incredible panelist of dedicated ocean guardians. So, Matt, I think if you want to elaborate on that, and then we can let everyone introduce themselves.
Yeah, so you say, Tamsin, I think, we've really enjoyed having World Oceans Day in Jersey over the last few years. And we're so overwhelmed by the spirit of our local island comes together, and everybody came out and they just really enjoyed it. And it was not only just sharing personal journeys, but just connecting and sharing stories together, which we found, which we love to do, which we love to connect people. Now, because obviously we can't put these events on, so now we're connecting like-minded people from all over the world. So that's why we have this amazing panel with us today. People that we've met along the way, and also just these like-minded, incredible people in the world of plastics and protecting the ocean and turning that into business. So there's Rai from Suniva Namuna. We spent some time together in the Maldives. She's is still relaxed in the Maldives at the moment and taking a little bit of time out. Jo Royal, who's with Common Seas, incredible story. I'm going to let Jo talk more about her story, but again, hugely passionate about protecting the ocean. Will Pearson is the founder of Ocean Bottle. We have recently connected with Will and the team. Again, an incredible story, not only stopping plastic from being in the ocean, but stopping plastic from getting in there in the first place, which is, we'll talk to you a little bit more about this. And Tim Silverwood, Take Three for the Sea. I first met Tim in Bali a few years ago. It was a very brief meeting, but he was just doing some really cool things. I think, using social media to get people to think about every time they're at the beach to pick up rubbish. And now he's also launched a new business, and I'm going to let him talk more about that. So to get this going, we just want to hear from you guys. I want to hear some of your story. I want to hear your personal story. And to where you are today. So if you could lead this, Jo, and just give us your background and your inspiring story, that'd be great.
Okay, thank you. Well, it's amazing to be celebrating World Ocean, even though we're all on dry land. But I always think this day is a bit like our Christmas Day for the ocean, and it gives you, or New Year's Eve maybe it's a New Year's Eve more than a Christmas Day, and it gives you a chance just to kind of check in and remind ourselves of our connection to the sea and maybe set our intentions for the next year. So my background is that I left school pretty early and decided that I wanted to work at sea, and off I went and kind of worked as a deckhand with all sorts of salty sea dogs and fishermen to any boat I could get on, and eventually ended up just thinking that I would never do anything else. Specialised really in crossing oceans and I just wanted to learn to be the best kind of sea woman, and so that took me kind of working my way up the ranks. It took me across many of the oceans and down, eventually spending more and more time down in the Southern Ocean. and in the Antarctic. And it was really there where you're just kind of on these beaches, and it was always every season we'd try and get further south. It was like one of those kind of ego things, I suppose. And just season after season, you'd kind of go to these new beaches and you think, oh, maybe I'm the only person, or me and my friends that I was with are the only people to set foot on these beaches. But unfortunately, we just see more and more plastic. And also not only the plastic, kind of spending time down there, we'd see more and more fishing activity in this area, especially the krill fishers that are kind of hoovering up loads of krill 24 hours a day, like factory fishing. And I ended up just kind of asking so many questions around our relationship with the ocean and kind of how our material choices impact the health of the ocean. And that took me to become more of a campaigner and my first step into campaigning was when a guy called David de Rothschild called me. Actually, it was over 10 years ago, but he called me and he said, oh, I'd like to build a raft out of plastic bottles and sail it across the Pacific. Will you help me build a boat? And I was like, oh, okay, sounds quite interesting. So off we went and we built this raft out of plastic bottles and sailed it across the Pacific. And I can tell you more about that if you're interested. And landed kind of 3-4 months later. Originally, we thought that the journey on the raft would take us 6 weeks, but it took us 3.5 months. And eventually landed in the same port where Tim lives. Maybe Tim can. I don't want to.
That's good. That's a good route for you, Tim. Straight in.
Yeah, and I remember that extremely well. It was probably one of the first high-profile events that really brought global awareness to plastic pollution. So commendations to you, Joe, and to David and the whole team for doing that. So that really did sort of cross-reference the start of my journey into tackling plastic pollution. It was 2009 when, together with Amanda and Roberta, we co-founded Take 3 for the Sea. We each had our own unique reasons for wanting to engage in education, awareness, activism on this problem. Mine is purely from being a surfer who grew up on these relatively pristine coastal stretches of Australia where, a bit of plastic was matter out of place, and it was almost like, for me, a bit of an obligation to remove the plastic bait bag or the bit of fishing tackle left behind because everything was so beautiful. But as I grew older and started to travel the world and visiting places like Indonesia and traveling throughout Asia and India, I started to see this sort of the global snapshot of what displaced objects looked like and how damaging they could be. And so even though I'd studied sustainability at university and I knew I was going to work in environmental conservation, plastic pollution really surprised me as being the issue that would galvanize all my passion. So I just dove straight in 2009, learned all about the incredible work that had been done by Captain Charles Moore and Algalita and all the wonderful oceanographers, the Curtis Ebersmeyers, and all these people who'd contributed to this. It was still 4 or 5 decades of understanding, even bringing us up to 2009. But no one was still talking about it really on the mainstream until, big initiatives like Plastiki, etc. So I ended up having sort of my big break to go on a journey of discovery in 2011. I joined one of the 5 Gyres and Algalita collaboration expeditions to the North Pacific subtropical gyre. Spent 3 weeks out there, got to see the Great Pacific Garbage Patch for myself, got to meet other activists and researchers and artists. And that was like, once I stepped on that boat, literally that was the start of a new journey, a new frontier for me. Came back, did a TED talk, and then just invested all of my energy into building Take 3 for the Sea, which hopefully many of you tuning in are familiar. It's just that simple sort of human initiative that we can all get behind to respond to the problem when we're in a natural space where matter, plastic is matter out of place. We can do something. And even better than picking it up is to sort of share that declaration that I've just responded to this global problem by doing something. So taking that image, sharing it on social, And we just had great success with the campaign. It wasn't easy, but until I left in March 2020, we had 10 great staff. We had the movement active in 129 countries. We've educated over 350,000 school children through programs. So brilliant outcomes. But it was time for me, after 10 years of building it, to move on. So I've just launched a new initiative. It's called Ocean Impact Organisation, or the social handle is Ocean Impact Org. And we're basically setting up a startup accelerator to focus on businesses that want to make a positive impact on the ocean. So this could be a really good segue to Will, who has a startup and who went through the Catapult Ocean Accelerator. So maybe that's a beautiful segue to you, Will.
That was very kind, Tim. I like what we're doing here, the ping pong intros. It's good. So thank you so much for having us. And I suppose if I was going to kick off about myself, I actually didn't grow up close to the ocean. I grew up on a farm in the UK, but I was really fortunate because I went sailing with my granddad in northern Norway. And I think that's where it all like kicked off for me. I was just mesmerized by boats, being out on the sea. You've got the big fjords up there, and it was, I think it really connected me. And I've taken that with me kind of through life. Later moved to Norway, and it got even closer, the relationship. But then I wanted to take it a step further and actually work at sea. I think it was always a dream for me, similar to Joe. So I went to work as a deckhand in the Indian Ocean, which was just an incredible experience, and I'd recommend it to anyone, really, so long as you don't get super seasick. But it was an incredible year, and unfortunately I experienced a lot of plastic during that year, and I didn't realize how I'm quite a latecomer to this area, and I have to be very humble compared to some of the people on the call who've been in the space for a very long time. But the problem became very visible to me. The fact that you could actually see the pollution so tangibly. And I'd had a friend who was studying marine biology, and he would not stop talking about microplastics. And at the beginning, I didn't believe him. I thought, how big can this problem be? And in the end, he really did convince me. And then obviously actually seeing it firsthand, I think really threw me over the edge. But it was actually when I got to Colombia a bit later that year, or the year after, when I was backpacking, and I was traveling through Colombia, and I just experienced these rivers just packed with plastic. And it was in the dry season, so it was actually before the rains were coming. But these rivers were just full to the brim with plastic. And all I could help but think was, as soon as the rain comes, all of this plastic is just going to flush straight out into the ocean. So I started to sort of research the problem. I found the statistic, the most widely published statistic, about 8 million tons of plastic that goes into the air each day, equating to 22 million kilos a day on average. And then I read more. I found out that in the next decade, we could experience ocean plastic actually doubling in weight. So literally in the next 10 years, we could double all of the terrible damage that we've done so far. So that was a bit of a call to action for me, and I really wanted to do something about it. And I also saw at the same time there's a huge groundswell movement with David Attenborough's documentaries, all the things that were happening in sort of mass awareness. And we saw an opportunity to connect all those individuals out there who wanted to desperately do something about the problem, to actually having a long-term impact. So that's how we created Ocean Bottle, and I sat in a cafe and came up with the idea. It was just it's probably a stupid idea at the time. But yeah, we wanted to create a product that anyone could have, use every day, and bring with them. But each product would send a substantial amount of funds to plastic collection. And that's where collaboration is so key, because we met Plastic Bank, who are an amazing organization. We partnered up with them. And now we're working to support the deployment of their collection points all over impoverished coastal communities to really help stop plastic and ocean plastic, some of the top sources. But also, it's a really great tool for local empowerment and enables locals to exchange plastic. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of my journey, and it's been a whirlwind since starting Ocean Bottle, and we've been really lucky to collaborate with some great places and companies and people from all corners of the world. The bottles are in 88 different countries, although it's a thin spread, to be honest, but still it's fantastic to have that representation. And we've worked with some amazing hotels, which obviously shoots me straight on over to Suneva in the Maldives. And Raya, over to you.
Thanks. So yeah, I'm Ryan, by the way, everyone. I think my story is a bit similar to yours, Will, where I joined the party a little late. But, growing up in the Maldives, I went to the ocean quite frequently and all of that. But I did move away for about 7 years or so for school and college and all of that. So what I came to realize is that I took a lot of it for granted. We have such amazing nature, just like right at your fingertips, So when I returned, I immediately joined Soneo Fushi, and we're an eco resort. And so automatically and just very naturally, I got drawn to all the issues that are prevalent here in the Maldives and shared globally as well. I've met so many interesting and inspiring people along the way. And I initially joined Soneva in the Waste to Wealth team. So, it became very apparent to me the challenges that we have. And also, like, once I, got more and more into it, I couldn't go anywhere without really, taking notice of these things. Like whenever you visit an island or you're on the beach, just going about your business, all you notice is the amount of plastic on the beach. It's the, trash everywhere. And I think now I'm the community engagement manager at Soneo Fushi. And so with our project Soneo Namuna, it started last year in January. And it really takes a holistic approach to this. We obviously want to reduce and eliminate single-use plastic, which is just, everywhere. But
have we still got Rye? She's still with us.
About a sustainable waste management, which also, addresses the plastic issue. And primarily, we're really focusing on working towards this sustainable waste management system with the community. So Joe and Common Seas is one of our partners in this project. We're also working with 3 other local islands. And so, we're creating a model with these islands that hopefully can be adopted across the country and also for other nations, island nations, yeah.
That's great. Okay, so I think
Right.
a really good intro there for everyone, and I think it really naturally is nice, and it brings us on to our next point, discussion point about how you as organisations, individuals are working towards turning the tide on plastic. So we've obviously introduced our organisations ourselves, and maybe let's talk, Joe, I think it might be nice to start with you because you can obviously talk with Rye as well about maybe some of the most important learnings that you've experienced and how you guys are working towards this goal and who you're working with, etc., and just kind of fill our audience in a little bit about that.
Yeah, so actually didn't say, but I work for Common Seas. I founded Common Seas actually we've been up and running in full speed for just under 2 years. And we're a social enterprise. We're solely dedicated to reducing the amount of plastic made to stop it from polluting our rivers and seas. And we do this through driving government policy, investing in the circular economy, and catalysing a cultural shift in the way that we make, use and dispose of plastic So it seems quite a lot, because we want to kind of nudge the value chain from all the way from before production to waste management. So how that's translated over the past couple of years, where we've been hard at it with a good team, is that we support governments with really low capacity, quite low capacity, which as many governments have low capacity to tackle plastic pollution. It's often really underfunded, and although it may seem, it's actually really complex for governments to understand how to address their specific problems. So we support governments through the Commonwealth members primarily, to really understand their plastic flows and how plastic leaks into their environment, and really where they can get the biggest bang for buck in delivering policy. And kind of once we've understood that, we can then go and help to really roll our sleeves up and start to demonstrate what we mean in practice. So we've got the kind of government policy ticking away, which takes a long time and it's slow, and as it is changing these systems from kind of linear to circular systems. We also try and start small-ish demonstration projects, so we can kind of shine a light on the how into the government. And we've been doing that in primarily in Indonesia and Greece, and more recently supporting where we can in Namunna and Suniva in the Maldives. And in Indonesia, the project's really it's in East Java. It's on the Brantas River, which is one of the most polluted rivers in the world. And we work there with a really quite well-established women's charity. And together we're trying to stop 1.5 million diapers, nappies, because we're now in English, speaking English, single-use babies' nappies from entering that river every day. So at the moment there's 1.5 million single-use plastic nappies entering the river every day, and everywhere you go you see them. So we're working there through supporting the women's initiatives to create, to finance reusable diaper services and waste management, and making useful materials out of the diaper waste, but it's clean by the time it's repurposed. So that's kind of an example of how it plays out on the ground. We also do work in human health, looking at how physical plastic impacts our health. And we've been wild fishing in our blood and our tissue for plastic particles, to understand how the plastic particles travel through our body and how they interact with our body, in the same way, I suppose, as they're interacting in the water. We know a lot more about plastics impacting the water than we do in our bodies. So then about a year, it's only just over a year ago that I went out to Suniva for the first time. It was the most amazing acceleration into a project. So we decided, I was really fortunate to be invited to help kind of curate this workshop on plastic pollution. And it all felt a little bit last minute, and we were all kind of bringing together an agenda. And before we knew it, we had three days of workshops at Suniva, and Raya and the team had pulled together people from from the President's office, from all aspects of the government to do with waste management and plastics, 3 island communities, the islands councillors, and all the local NGOs interested in the topic, and more people. And we spent these 3 days going through kind of how does plastic get into the Maldivian waters, what are the items, and what are the really big kind of points where we can start to intervene. And by the end of it, all members, which is kind of all members of what I would say, all the key stakeholders that are required to take a system from being kind of take, make, dispose to kind of circular, so that resources are kind of being used again, natural resources. We all agreed that we would work together to end open burning on these islands, and radically reduce the amount of single-use plastic made, and everyone signed this Clean Blue Charter, and that was the start of the work, wasn't it? Right? Well, that was the start. You've been doing a lot more since then, but it was just an incredible, like, talking about Tamsin collaboration, and especially with these wicked challenges, you need so many members of the value chain to convene at the same time and agree to work together. Otherwise, you're going to be swimming up against a great current for many years.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head, Joe. You really have to get all the stakeholders involved in the conversation, because you can do so much as an individual or within your communities, but really it takes place across the chain, as you said. So we obviously work on the ground more with the communities and Common Seas. There's more policy modeling for us as well, so we complement our work really nicely. But our work really is kind of split into 3 components. So we've got Reduce, where we look at reducing single-use plastics. We have a mineralized water bottling facility in one of the islands. So that's been a really, really encouraging and successful way to see the amount of plastic avoided. And just to give you some context, in the Maldives, like one of the biggest sources of single-use plastics is the PET bottles, the water bottles that gets imported. And following that closely, there is, single-use plastic bags and nappies, disposable nappies, and so on. So our focus is very much on those bigger plastics, the ones that are generally more in the communities, and to be able to process that in a space where there aren't many resources or facilities to able to process them. It's a really big challenge, and we are also geographically quite dispersed, so there's all these other logistical challenges that we also face in terms of transportation and accessibility and all these things. So as Joe said, one of our main goals in the first phase of the project has been to end open burning on the islands, because every island, the way they are able to deal with it is that all the waste mixed comes in and is burnt on the beachfront usually. So it's not just seeping into the ocean, but it's also being burnt, and creating a lot of pollution that way. So what we've done so far and what we've achieved is to be able to encourage recycling and to provide the infrastructure. I think the best way to go about it in terms of, speaking about plastic pollution, so on. Sorry, did I?
You're back.
Yeah, we lost you.
Yeah, I don't know where I got cut off, but I was just saying that, we take an approach with the mindset to reduce more. Of course, recycling is a really important thing, but reduce is one of our biggest targets. But also the last component of our project is about inspiring people. So we have, as I said, everyone has access to the sea and so on, but we're not really interacting and engaging in a way that we understand the implications of our actions or what we're generating, what we're consuming. So a lot of our work is with schools, is with women's committees, local NGOs and the councils, of course, and to, inspire younger people to engage more and get in the water, learn how to swim and so on, so that you can really fully start to see what the issues are that, and how to protect the environment.
Great. Tim?
Yeah, I guess it's probably a good little window for me to talk about education as well. That was really what the backbone of Take 3 for the Sea does. So we've sort of got 2 parts to the organisation. This sort of global digital call to action, which is beautifully suited to social media and that ability to do a small action and then to sort of celebrate it with your sphere of influence. And one of the things I've most loved about watching Take 3 over the decade is the way it's been able to light fires in other people to create an initiative that works for their context. So people might be inspired by the simplicity of Take 3 for the Sea and then create their own spin on it or their own version of it or whatever it might be. And so I think that grassroots element of giving people, compelling people to do something has been really powerful. But then obviously we also do this sort of more detailed education programs with young people, trying to give them the tools to create change in their school, in their home, in their community, and that naturally spills out into businesses, workplaces, etc. So yeah, I'm really thrilled that Take 3 for the Sea has got to where it's got. As I said, in March this year, I stepped down as the sort of founding CEO, and Sarah Beard is our new CEO, and she's doing a wonderful job. Poor thing, imagine getting the gig on the 1st of March and then the COVID crisis hit. So she's definitely sailing through some choppy waters as she tries to create some clean water for Take 3 for the Sea. But back to sort of what I guess I'm doing now with my new project, Ocean Impact Organisation, it's really, I guess, looking at this status where we do continually seem to we lumber civil society with this enormous task of trying to right the wrongs that have often been created by big business and by a lack of government action. There's all these other players that get involved. And I guess I got a little bit disillusioned with this enormous task of trying to solve plastic pollution and being a charity saying, please help us so we can go and fix all the problems. And a lot of the big businesses that were coming along and expressing interest, they do want to do a lot of it for the greenwash and the blue wash and the good PR stories, and they're not really quite ready to create a big fundamental shift in the way they're doing things. And so a lot of the reasons why we've set up OIO is to be supportive of the disrupting innovators, the entrepreneurs with the big ideas who can imagine a world where we don't have 8 million tonnes of plastic going into the ocean, a world where 1.5 million nappies don't go into a single river every day, and looking at how good businesses that are built around being regenerative and restorative, when you know the problems, when you know what we're up against with climate change and the destruction of our biosphere, there's a huge portion of the population who don't want to buy into that. They don't want their dollar to affect bad. They want their dollar to affect good. And so I'm really excited about this new focus for me, which is all about impact-driven, purpose-driven businesses, because even though I'm a bit of a newbie, like I am the conservationist, I'm not the businessman. Thankfully, my co-founder, Nick Chiarelli, is. But I'm really passionate about this because I think that with plastic, for example, in the decade that I've been advocating action on plastics, we've really seen a huge shift in the hearts and the minds of many, many people. Before, no one really recognised the problem. Now it's mainstream. But we do need to radically fast-track solutions. And I think that innovation and giving the tools to entrepreneurs like Will, another segue coming up, mate, to actually build great ideas that can be scalable and then give them the tools to support them. So that's kind of what I'm doing now with my new role.
Thanks so much, Tim. Just fascinating to hear about, and I think we couldn't agree more. And I think I could quite easily reiterate all the points that you guys have made because I think they're really valid. I think we also wouldn't exist, or we wouldn't be where we are today without the kind of accelerator that you guys are, which I think is really important because we need so many solutions to collaborate and to take action on this huge issue. It's not just a one-shot moonshot. We're going to make it. It's going to require a lot of different efforts. But I think you're right. I think we're tipping beyond the point of awareness now. I think, to be honest, we need to keep that pressure up, and we need to keep that awareness as high as ever. But there's also that element of taking action, which we're so excited about, at least. And I think with ocean plastic, and from our perspective, we see it as it's also sort of a two-pronged approach, right? And if we can come at ocean plastic from both ends, we have the best possibility of creating impact. And obviously, the one end is production of particularly single-use plastics. 40% of plastic production is single-use plastic. Why are we wrapping a salad in a material that lasts for 400 years? Right? When that material could not be wrapped in the first place, or it could be compostable. We have these stupid use cases of plastic where it just needs to disappear. And I sincerely hope that we can take some action in that space. Us in particular, we want people to cut out on plastic bottle consumption, coffee cup consumption, because it's so easy. Just skip it. Like, it's so easy. When I was working back on the boat and we were in the Maldives, the owners of our yacht bought almost 1,200 Evian bottles just for their family. They were people on a Christmas holiday and they're buying this obscene amount of plastic bottles, and it's just unnecessary. And you look at where they end up in Tilafushi, they're getting burnt, and it's so fantastic, to hear about the work that you guys are doing around that. But yeah, so it is fundamentally, it's reduced, because what is the ultimate source of plastic? Ocean plastic, of plastic in the first place. So, we're really excited about the opportunities there to drastically reduce single-use plastic. But I think there's also a huge area which is perhaps less recognized in the public domain, which is that even if we can ban the straw, even if we can, make some great action, all those nappies are still going to end up in the ocean. So creating these waste management initiatives in local communities is also what we're really focused about. I think it's over 75% of ocean plastic now that comes from uncollected plastic waste. So really, if we can increase that collection with disruptive solutions, we stand a really good chance of stopping all this plastic before it goes out into the ocean. So for us, that is working together with Plastic Bank. We basically fund social plastic collection credits, and they actually go through an IBM blockchain system. So it means it's all totally traceable. And then these collection credits are actually available to plastic collectors on the other side of the world. So they can exchange whatever plastic they've collected for digital tokens, which could then be swapped for money, other products, access to medical insurance, or access to microfinance and tuition. So it really creates a real sort of social empowerment as well, and turns what is literally just something that's destroying the planet into something that can actually benefit people as well. So yeah, I mean, for us, it's those two elements, and we need that continuous spiral of engagement and awareness. One of the best stories I ever heard, if it allowed me to share one final thing, was Afroz Shah, who's from Mumbai, and he's one of the UN World champions of the environment, and he's managed to mobilize 80,000 people. I mean, in a similar way to you, Tim, he's managed to mobilize 80,000 people to clean 25 million kilograms of plastic in Mumbai, and it's just one of those staggering stories. And he actually takes people from inner India on a date with the ocean, because so many people have never seen the ocean, and if you first see the ocean and fall in love with the ocean, that's when you can really learn to care for it. So I think there's that whole other element as well.
I love that. And how did you say he's connecting with everybody? Is he just doing it on social media? Does he have a big...
Yeah, I think it's just Chinese whispers, and I think it just goes through. He's got so many inroads with the communities. So he's actually a high court judge in India, and he sits in a real position of power, and was sort of voted GQ Man of the Year. And then he's out there with his marigolds on, picking plastic, showing people that everyone can do this. And he just invites people from all sorts of communities across the country to come down and join and come on a date with the ocean, clean the plastic, and then go home, use less plastic, don't throw it in a river, don't throw it in the streets. And I think there's something really powerful to learn there.
Just the incredible, I mean, it literally, the beaches that he did clean, it looked insurmountable. And then that whole thought of, can one person really make a difference? And it might have just been him in week one, but after hundreds of weeks of doing it every single weekend, it was clean. And there was a success story with turtles coming back to nest on the beach in recent years because there's actually clean sand for them to nest on now. So yeah, an extraordinary positive story.
It's fantastic.
Okay.
Absolutely incredible. I think maybe we could touch a little bit. I know, Joe, we touched on it slightly, but just a little bit about how COVID might have had a bit of an impact and a bit of a shift in terms of the production of plastics and the industry itself. Because I know I was quite shocked to hear about some of the facts, and I think it might be nice to share with some of our listeners.
So I think it's probably too early to tell what the impacts of COVID are on the health of our ocean and our relationship with nature. And we talk a lot. There's a lot of talk about the great recovery, and let's hope that it's a very challenging time around boardroom tables, and let's hope that the topic of the great recovery is going on the boardroom tables of the big packaging producers, and not just as well as how they're going to recover economically post COVID. I've been involved in a few discussions, and I think actually they've been involved. They're mainly in the discussions where I'm involved in looking at the investment in some of the funds that have been created to tackle plastic pollution. It's coming back into Tim and Will's points, I think, as well. But a lot of the funds that we have, and slightly going off topic, what you asked for, but there's a lot of money that's been put aside now, or committed to address ocean plastic. And it's really exciting to see these funds grow. And I think, a lot of it at the moment is being channeled at the end of pipe. And there seems to be not really a pipeline of investments in that kind of reduce and substitute stage, where I think that Tim and Will are really focusing their business models on. So I'm very excited to learn more about your business, Tim, and to think it connects in with the thinking around what interests communities so much about working in the Maldives, because the Maldives has high economic dependency on this pristine blue amazing ocean that you can go there and experience. It has really high plastic leakage per capita, so per person it leaks around, each person puts around 3.75 kilos of plastic into that Maldivian ocean each year, in comparison to a European citizen who's about 0.03, so it's quite high. And the country is just so remote from any recycling industry, so it really is like a closed net. It really needs to work on, or we really all need to work together to work out how we can reduce and substitute those items, how we make sure that you don't arrive on your yacht and load up hundreds of bottles of Evian and then leave them on Telefushi to kind of eventually burn and dust out into the sea. So I think there's a lot of discussion there that kind of brings us all together in the future, maybe to think around how do we get these products that are needed across the Maldives without leaving any packaging behind. And it's not easy, and it definitely needs incubation and new investment and creative businesses. Okay, so COVID and plastic, I think what we're seeing is a spike in the use of packaging. We're seeing a lot of the big corporates lobbying for increased packaging for safety measures. We know that plastic now the science is pretty sure that COVID lasts on plastic packaging for about 72 hours. So it's not necessarily safer than any other material that we've got around us. It's definitely not going to protect us from plastic, from COVID. We've seen obviously the rise in all of the medical use, which is a controversial, and how do we solve that? It's a difficult time to speak out about single-use plastics. But I think what concerns me is what I'm hearing from some of the resin producers is that actually the spike in single-use plastic is balancing out the loss of the industry from the automotive and the oil fields and the kind of the more industry commercial use of plastic. And if that's true, that's really concerning, because the vast majority of plastic we see in our seas is single-use plastic, is packaging. So I hope that that's not the output of COVID, but it's looking quite likely. Yeah.
Can I add to that? I think it's a really good opportunity, though, in this time to sort of reflect and think about your own practices, because you're somewhat limited in, everyone's making their own adjustments to what you do in your daily lives. And I think, with some of the imports maybe also being halted and things like that, you can really establish a system that works for you, like looking at, growing at home and, making more sustainable choices as you look at what you're consuming, while you look at reducing your consumption, just based on the current situation. So I think those are really nice opportunities that's come about as well. We're really looking at how we can encourage our communities to make that reduction in their consumption, and also like perhaps, how to close the loop, so to speak, within their own homes. We're currently making some videos and online tutorial for, sustainable organic gardening. And it's really to encourage growing at home, growing fresh and healthy. But part of it is also addressing the fact that, we have a common practice of dumping food waste in the ocean. And usually this also comes with, bits of plastic here and there in the food waste that goes into the ocean. So that's also a way in which these single-use plastics leak into our seas. So, with the organic composting and things, there's also, we are emphasizing a lot more on, composting and, really getting into that sustainable habit, so that, even those different ways that plastic is leaking into the ocean is reduced. But again, reflecting a lot more given the current situation.
Yeah, definitely. I think, Tim, I want to explore ocean impact a little bit more as well. I think a lot of businesses nowadays, like you said, have previously maybe lent towards more greenwashing approach, because maybe they feel like the actual problem itself is so large-fetched, or maybe they're not directly, involved in it, but they absolutely are. Everyone is. So how can we, look at their systems and their logistics and work towards more of a tangible solution, because they might not have something that's, is easy to relate, like Will's bottle, etc. So I'd really encourage attendees to just submit any questions that you've got for any of the panelists. But maybe, Tim, we could touch a little bit more on, the process of getting in touch with you guys and how does it work?
Yeah, so as I said, we're only a few months old, so you can really just head to oceanimpact.org on socials, or our website, just ocean-impact.org. Register your interest if you're an entrepreneur or a founder, and you're looking to programs in the future, then by all means register your interest. Maybe you're a mentor, someone who has some industry experience or expertise, and so you can actually help to support the entrepreneurs and founders that will be helping to accelerate. And of course, we're looking for those impact investors who are really keen to see their money or money that they manage go into projects that are doing good for planet ocean. I guess I might just touch on those earlier comments there about the current sort of nature of the world, and I do feel like there is these sort of opposing forces, and we all have a role to play in which of those forces sort of flourishes and which of those doesn't. And I do recognize those points, like with Ryan and Joe, that people have had a wonderful time to, you know, have this great pause to reconsider so much about their relationship with the environment, their relationship with work, with friends and family. We've all had this internal process. We've upskilled. People have spent more time in the gardens, or they're really willing and excited to get out there and start doing their composting, having been in this state. But then on the other side, the opposing force is obviously everyone going into this supercharged economic recovery model. And at the end of the day, that's going to be fundamentally important to sustain the capitalistic model. And that could very easily see a lot of big pressure and a lot of damage on the environment. So we, I suppose, that are really sensing this wonderful opportunity to foster this this connection to the environment, to look at issues like the connection between social justice and environmental destruction, to look at like intersectional environmentalism and all these great things. That we really have to go and double down on those during this time, because it will try and come back to normal. It'll try and come back to normal. And we want to say, there's a great little quote going out there at the moment saying, like, when you're thinking about life going back to normal, just how about you rethink what was so good about normal? Because we do want to start to see a new type of normal that puts the planet at the center, because we cannot continue. We are going to just get more and more of these devastating impacts on the human species at the consequence of every other species if we just continue to be so ignorant of that interconnectedness between us and the natural world that we coexist with.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt, you've got a couple of questions as well, haven't you?
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I just think that point's really interesting. And I think that we've all been working towards this, especially over the last few years. Tim, I know you've been working this for a long time. And it's just this question now after, going back to COVID, but do you think that businesses are going to be coming out of this now with a very new outlook, and they know that they have to be, when they're talking about investing in change, they need to be openly showing that they are investing in change, and they're doing it. They're not just putting some money in but not following it up. They're actually having to actually go submerge themselves in it and be involved with with businesses like yourself. We see it as this is the way business has to run now, and it's really important that businesses are openly showing that they're doing that.
Yeah, and I love it. And we set that benchmark. We, with our dollar and our collective, appreciation of the service that they provide, that's us voting for the level of work that they've achieved. And look, doing bad better is still better than doing bad. But what we really want, and what I get really fired up about, is those businesses that are just inherently good. And I'd argue and propose that trying to retrofit a massive company that has shareholders with a track record of performance and asking them to completely shift over to doing good is completely unfeasible. And that's why I get so excited about these people who look at business in a new lens. They're the B Corps and the impact-driven businesses, the people that want to break the mold and do business as unusual. I think if we can really shine a light on them, that's not only is it going to make the other guys move a lot faster because these guys are coming up behind them, but it also might mean that those dinosaurs go extinct sooner than they should. And that's kind of a good thing for the sake of the planet.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I love that.
That is a good way to put it. I tell you, there's a question here from Anna Queros. She said, what would be the best way to convince schools to teach their students about the problem? Now, I think this is great because this is the next generation. What's the best way to teach the next generation about the problem, and how could you educate them into new business as well, from anyone on the board?
I think at Common Seas we think that the best way is to ensure that the formal learning curriculum is teaching the skills like year on year to provide the moral courage, experience, knowledge, technical skills to actually be part of the solution. So rather than teaching them about the problem, teach them about the solution, the new materials, how to do regenerative, good business, and yeah, how to be the next scientist. So that's our approach.
Nice.
I love, sorry, you go, Rye.
I think it's also really important to bring it home, make it very fitting to the local context, because then, people are able to better, understand what the issue is that's more relatable to them. And so by making that connection, they're better able to work towards an immediate environment around them, because, you can't really jump from a realization all the way to the global issue, but rather you should start with your surrounding. And I think approaching schools in this way is also a really good way to create more awareness, because when you're reaching out to younger people, they're more energetic, more enthusiastic about it, and you automatically reach the whole community that way as well. And we've seen that with our work. Whenever we're with younger people, they're just so excited about what you're doing. You just show them how to do and they follow. But in doing so, they are then, telling their parents or siblings, and to just kind of encourage the same behavior. And I think that's quite infectious when you're working with younger people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was just going to reinforce that, that local context, I think, is important. And back to Will's point about afros and a date with the ocean, make it a date with the problem in the context of where it is that you are, because it's certainly been something that works from school children to corporate leaders. You have them interact with the problem, and the magnitude of impact is so much greater than just trying to do a presentation in a boardroom or in a classroom. So really try and involve them in a physical interaction, because they'll get it much quicker. And make it fun. I love Doshi, the gnarly beach cleaner, who does great work with Alga Leader over in California, and he's all about making it fun. Make sure you make it fun.
And also that, like you said, the connection as well, because it's interesting to think that most of us today on the call now have come to do what we do because we spent so much time in the ocean. Providing as many people as possible time to connect with the ocean is so important.
Yeah, and in schools as well, I think people find it really important to find that practical element of what you learn as well. So, you just learning the theory in itself isn't very satisfying to some people. And so to be able to have an impact and see that impact, is quite powerful. And I think that's the way to really convince schools to, whether it's extracurricular activities or whether it's part of the formal curriculum, I think that's what ultimately brings you to the impact.
If I might add as well, I think it's a really interesting question, because I think a lot of influence happens in the home. I think kids are really influential over their parents in a lot of places, and you can not only inspire the career that child is going to set off on, but as soon as that kid comes home and has something exciting to tell their parents, they can create a lot of pressure on their parents and inspiration from home as well. So I would love to see a mandatory course on the Sustainable Development Goals across all schools worldwide. It should be like geography. Let's put it in there. But unfortunately, I don't know how to make it happen. So if anyone's got any great ideas, then please shoot them out.
Well, that's such a fantastic idea. Let's start a petition, like a signable petition, because that as a syllabus would be, it's not only crucial, but it's moving forward. It has to be done. So I think that's such a fantastic idea, especially within schools, and or even making it available so that children and young people can, embark on this course in their spare time at least. So that's nice as well, because it's almost like you go to Scouts, but you get your UN kind of certificate as well. That would be nice. I think we've got time for one more question, and it's a good question. It says tourism and fishing are the biggest culprits, mostly in India, that increases the marine pollution. Now that is something that we're going to touch on with Blue Marine Foundation at 3:00. So make sure you tune into that, whoever's asked this question. But they've asked specifically, can you suggest some safety measures to get rid of mainly plastic? So yeah, I'm not too sure who wants to go first on that one, but it's a good question.
Yeah, if you're talking about fishing-related pollution, that can be a particularly challenging one. You're going up against a huge industry with lots of complications in trying to get them to change gear, but maybe it's about changing practices on board, and there's quite a few great examples around the world how changing practices like not just dumping nets, but having nets become available for recycling. The guys at Bureo do with Chile, turning them into skateboards next to nets to decks, all that great stuff there. So I'd do a bit of research, look at what others have done successfully around the world. The web is going to be a great portal to seeing those case studies, and then reach out. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
And maybe Rai, maybe you could touch on the tourism and fishing point, because I know you guys do a lot around that.
Yeah, I think with things, as with all things, I think it's very important that it is tackled from all levels. As policymakers or representatives, it's really important that the issues are raised and they're better able to monitor and regulate things like fishing, because no one's really monitoring what goes in and ending up in the ocean. No one's really, holding resorts or other tourist establishments accountable for the sort of practices that you do. So, from a Soneva sort of point of view, we hold sustainability as our core value, and so as a business, I think we also encourage and lobby other resorts to do similar work where you can reduce the amount of plastic that you use in your own hotels and resorts, and also that automatically I think resonates with more socially conscious travelers, people who work in your establishments and so on. And so that's a really encouraging way to go forward, making it one of your core values to really emphasize those issues.
Great, thank you. And I just think moving forward, I personally could sit on this for a long time and learn a lot from all of you. So I'd encourage everyone listening to kind of reach out afterwards. I'm sure you all won't mind, and to ask any questions you've got, visit the website, social handles, and learn, because that's what today is about, as well as celebrating, but also really kind of learning as much as you can in order for us to make the changes. And I think one thing I'd like to say is, as consumers, we also have a power. We have the power to invest in brands and products like Wills and resorts like Soneva, to be able to kind of say, this is where my money is going to go, and I'm choosing to invest in this as a product or a service because I know they're socially conscious and I can align my values with it. So I think that's also nice moving forward, because it can seem like a huge, massive problem that one individual can't, make a dent. But I think by talking to all of you today, it's clear that an individual can absolutely have such a huge impact. So I'd like to say a huge thank you to all of you. And let's just close up by just talking about anything else that we've maybe not touched on.
Who's going first?
Who's going first?
Well, on your question, one of the questions was what can we do? And I think one of the things we've been doing at Common Seas over COVID, going back to Raya's point, is that we've been sporadically collecting 7 days of our plastic packaging, cleaning it and collecting it, and taking creative pictures with it and sharing them, and then having discussions about the items that we're struggling to get rid of. And over time, our team have become more and more zero waste. So it's really been a great opportunity. Like, that's definitely a great opportunity for COVID, especially a lot of us environmentalists that seem to be traveling the whole time. We're now grounded. We're able to kind of really reflect on our own, have a lot more control about what we're purchasing and how we're managing our waste. So that would be we've all enjoyed doing that. So I thought I'd share that as my last.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Jo. I love that. I'm going to give that a go.
Now we can share the pictures. Maybe we can all share the pictures.
Yeah, sharing. This is it.
Sharing
the pictures.
together.
I think, you know, this is what, following on from Tamlin was saying there, and you were just saying then, Joe, it's connecting now, and it's sharing our experiences, and this, you know, whether the schools are connecting in the Maldives to the schools in Jersey here, or in Australia, it's being able to share the knowledge you're getting and the experience you're getting alongside, you know, like yourselves, and understanding from you guys, but actually being able to get those images and being able to share those images and being able to just share your experience. It's so important. And I think this is I think that's a really valuable point in this, is, you know, share that experience and just talk to each other. And, you know, that's what we're trying to do here. We're just trying to connect people together, and whether we can connect children at primary school and they could be talking to each other, that's great. And connecting the experts like yourselves, I think that's, you know, we're really able to achieve something just by chatting with the people that have devoting their lives to a subject around the ocean. So yeah, that's really valuable. Thank you.